You open the fridge, stare at everything inside it, close it. Open it again 30 seconds later, as if something new might have appeared. Pick up a book, read 2 pages, put it down, not because it's bad, because it's not enough. You've got the whole evening free and nothing in it sounds worth starting. You could cook, you could watch something, you could go for a walk, you could do any of the things you keep saying you never have time for. You have the time. You don't have the interest. A mate suggested a film last week. You were looking forward to it. 20 minutes in, you picked up your phone. Not because the film was boring, because your brain had already moved on and the film hadn't. Why does nothing feel interesting anymore? Most people think this is a motivation problem, or a depression thing, or a sign that you just haven't found your passion yet. It isn't any of those. It's a calibration problem. Your brain has not lost the ability to feel interested. You trained it to need more before it switches on. And you did it every evening for years. That probably sounds dramatic. It isn't. It's just maths. Your brain runs a reward system. When something is novel or unpredictable, you get a small hit of interest. That's the thing that makes you lean forward, pay attention, keep going. A good conversation doesn't feel like work. A bad lecture does, even if the bad lecture contains more useful information. The system works on thresholds. Think of it like a bar you have to clear. If the activity clears the bar, it registers as interesting. If it doesn't, it registers as boring. When you were 12, the bar was low. A new song could hold your attention for a week. A decent film kept you thinking about it for days. Reading something surprising was enough to make you excited about an idea you'd never considered. The bar has moved, not because you changed, because the competition did. The average evening now includes content built by teams of engineers to be as engaging as possible, tested across millions of users, refined until the exact combination of novelty and unpredictability keeps you watching without you choosing to continue. That content sits at the very top of the stimulation chart. And your brain, doing what brains do, adjusts its threshold upward to match. It doesn't lower the bar when you put the app down. It keeps it where the last session left it. So you look at the book and it feels flat. You look at the recipe and it feels like work. You look at the evening ahead and nothing in it seems worth starting. The activities haven't changed. Your threshold has. That's not laziness. It's a settings problem. And you didn't change the settings on purpose. Nobody sat you down and asked whether you'd like your entire reward system recalibrated. It just happened somewhere between the 2nd and 400th video. Picture a chart. Along the bottom, stimulation level. Up the side, interest. There's a horizontal line. That's your threshold. Anything above it registers. Anything below it doesn't. 5 years ago, that line sat low enough that cooking a meal, going for a walk, or reading a chapter cleared it easily. You could be entertained by a sunset, or a conversation, or a reasonably good cartoon. Now picture what happens when you spend 3 hours a night on apps built to sit at the very top of that chart. The line rises. Not overnight, not in a week. The way your eyes adjust to a bright room until normal light looks dim. According to a study I read once, the average person's stimulation threshold increases by roughly 14% per year of heavy social media use. That's a statistic I made up, but the feeling is accurate, which is the only part that matters here. Your tolerance goes up. The same activities that used to fill an evening now feel like background noise. They didn't get worse. The comparison got louder. The high stimulation stuff doesn't feel great either. That's the bit nobody warned you about. It just feels less boring than everything else. You're not choosing it because you enjoy it. You're choosing it because the gap between opening an app and doing nothing is smaller than the gap between doing nothing and opening that book. That's the difference between entertainment and medication. Something you enjoy leaves a residue. You finish a film and sit with it for a minute. You close a book and think about it afterwards. Something stays after it ends. The stuff that fills the gap leaves nothing. The room goes quiet and you look around for the next thing and nothing qualifies. The room hasn't changed. The room was always this quiet. You just used to be okay with it. Most people arrive at the wrong explanation. They look at the flatness and decide something is broken inside them. They think they've lost their passion. They Google, why don't I enjoy anything anymore? And the results confirm it. Because the internet is extremely good at turning a settings problem into an identity crisis. What they don't consider is that the system is doing its job. Your brain adjusts the threshold upward so the new level becomes normal. That's the adaptation. Useful if you're adjusting to a new environment over years. Less useful when the environment is a phone screen running an algorithm with a larger engineering team than most countries' space programs. Evolution built the system for gradual change. You handed it an arms race. There are 3 versions of this you'll recognise. The first is the hobby graveyard. You have a language app, a half-read book, a set of weights you use as a doorstop, a journal with 4 entries, and a recipe you saved 6 months ago and still haven't tried. You started each one during a week when the threshold dipped. Each one felt exciting for about 2 days. Then the bar came back up and they joined the pile. The book didn't get less interesting. Your bar came back up. This looks like quitting. It isn't. Quitting is losing interest in something new. This is losing access to something you already cared about. The interest is still underneath the threshold. You just can't reach it from where the bar sits now. The second is the phantom boredom. You're bored, but you're also aware that you shouldn't be. You have options. You have time. You have things you chose to own because you once found them exciting. And still, nothing. You could furnish a small flat with everything you've bought to stop being bored. So now you're bored and confused about being bored, which is its own particular kind of tiredness. The third is the preview problem. You can imagine enjoying things. You remember what it felt like to be interested. You can picture yourself reading that book or cooking that meal or going for that walk. The preview works fine. The moment you try to do it, the bar shows up and the whole thing goes flat. So you end up planning activities more than doing them, which is a hobby in itself, just a fairly depressing one. Most advice tells you to do a dopamine detox. Delete your apps for a week. Go sit in a field. Stare at a wall until your brain resets. That advice is roughly as useful as telling someone who's been stressed for months to just relax. The threshold didn't shift because of one bad weekend. It shifted over months and years. It doesn't reset because you white-knuckled your way through a Saturday. What works is smaller than that. You don't need to eliminate stimulation. You need to lower the entry point. Pick one activity that used to interest you, the easiest one to start. A walk, a page, a single recipe. It won't feel amazing. It will feel flat. That's the threshold talking, not the activity. Do it anyway. For less time than you think you should. If 15 minutes sounds too long, try 10. If 10 sounds too long, you're negotiating with yourself, which is a sign you've already started, so well done. 15 minutes of something flat is more useful than 3 hours of planning to enjoy something later. The threshold adjusts downward the same way it adjusted upward, slowly, through exposure, not through willpower. And the other half is what happens in the quiet. When you finish the activity and the room goes still and every part of you wants to reach for the next thing. That feeling is not a sign that you need more stimulation. It's the gap. It's the distance between where your threshold sits and where the room is. The gap feels unbearable because you've been closing it for years. The moment it appeared, every time. You've never had to sit in it. Sitting in it is the adjustment. Nobody needs to pretend boredom is noble. You don't need a candle and a journal. You just need to stop filling the gap the instant it appears, which is harder than it sounds, and less inspiring than any self-help book has ever made it look. Sitting in it works because the threshold only comes down when you stop propping it up. The book will not feel exciting on page 1. It might on page 40. Not because it gets better, because you got quieter. So the next time you've got the whole evening free and you're standing in your kitchen looking at a room full of options and feeling nothing about any of them, understand what's happening. You're not broken. You haven't lost your passion. You haven't become someone who can't enjoy things. Your threshold shifted. That's all. The activities are exactly where they always were. The line moved above them. Not, I don't enjoy anything anymore. Try, my baseline moved and everything looks flat from up here. One of those is a life sentence. The other is a settings problem with a very boring fix. Why does nothing feel interesting anymore? The things didn't change. Your bar did. And the bar comes back down the same way it went up. Quietly. Slowly. Without you noticing. Until one evening a book holds your attention for an hour and you realise you forgot to check your phone. Anyway, I'm going to go open the fridge again. Maybe something appeared. If that helped, consider subscribing. It motivates me to make more.